There is a reason why I can run 2 companies, still go to date night every week, still hang out with my kids, still go to the lake in the boat, still take a vacation, still do all my emails, still do all my PowerPoint presentations. There's a reason for that. Because when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone.
Get ready to be amazed. Get ready to be transformed. Get ready to believe it is possible. You're entering the growth zone on the Guts and Glory Show with your host, Louise Scott.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back. If you want to donate to the 8-Figure Rescue, there's going to be a bucket at the back of the room, so be sure to donate. Today, I am pleased to have 2 of our members talking about tech in a law firm. And it's one thing to talk about the theory of technology or, the concept of Chat GPT. It's another thing to see it in practice. And so I have Kayla and Brandon, who work in firms across the country, South Carolina and in Florida. And they've done some really cool things in their firm. And I invited them to help us better understand how we can use these tools for our firms and actually create that edge that we're looking for. So with that, let's welcome Kayla and Brandon. I'd like to start off by asking them to tell us a little bit about their firm. So Kayla, if you can.
Yeah, I'm from Viles Beckman. I'm the COO there. We are personal injury in Fort Myers, Florida. So we do predominantly motor vehicle accident, but we do premises and product liability cases as well.
And tell us a little bit about the size of your firm and how many employees do you guys have?
We're currently at 38 employees. We have 5 attorneys and then the rest staff.
Okay, awesome. Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon Dawson with Miller Dawson, Sigal Ward. It's a mouthful. So we were better known as the Thumbs Up guys in Charleston, South Carolina. We started in 2018 with just the 4 of us and have grown to about 40 team members. We got 14 attorneys, practice in the personal injury area. I'd say 80% PI, about 20% comp. And so, yeah, that's where we are.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the technology you guys are using, I'd love to know, how do you guys introduce technology to your teams? Because I think that's one of the biggest concerns is that, and we heard this in a hot seat session, that there's maybe some dinosaurs out there who don't want to take technology. So what are you guys doing to improve technology, Brandon?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, Luis, because I can tell you how not to do it. And one of the times we tried to implement, and really it was on me, trying to kind of force a product on the team and just kind of rolled it out without getting buy-in, right? And I believed in it, but I didn't have the team's buy-in on how, case status was going to help and it was going to make things so great, right? And so, I think the lesson learned there was you have to have buy-in from everybody. So talk to your attorneys and your case managers, your team, say, what are the pain points here? Instead of guessing at it and thinking that I think that really is the first thing, is find out what your pain points are. And then when you go to implement it, have that conversation with them, once you roll it out and then you've gotten buy-in beforehand, hey, how can we make this better, right? And a lot of these products you can tailor. We're in the process of implementing even up demands. So it's like AI demands. Mm-hmm. And, we've started it with buy-in. We then, the attorneys are kind of running it now, but we want to get it to the case managers. We're constantly communicating with Even Up. I mean, I'm on, Zoom calls with them saying, hey, like this isn't right. Can you do this? And, they're also kind of in that startup mode. They're like, yeah, we're working on that. And okay, we can get you this. So I think it's that constant communication and getting buy-in.
I think that's huge.
Yeah. Everything that you talked about, involving them. So making them feel like this isn't a top-down decision, but this is a decision that you're leading them into, really helps with the buy-in and then the constant feedback. We're also implementing Even Up right now. And we started a pilot program where 2 case managers out of each pod are participating in it. And they're going to be our champions. So they're going to be the ones that after they go through the pilot program, they can get other people on board and say, hey, I've already done this and this works for us. So highly recommend a pilot program.
So you implemented something that we talked about yesterday has probably made and or saved you millions of dollars. And I wanted people to hear this because it was a combination of technology and VAs, which is a hot topic for many people. I'd love for you to start by telling us What was the problem that you saw in the firm? And then what did you guys do to resolve that issue?
Yeah, I think every PI attorney in the room can probably say that medical records retrieval is a hot issue. And so that was my biggest issue that I was trying to solve is how do we get records in faster? How do we make this more efficient? And how do I do it with the less cost? And so I was invited to look at Arcretrival, which is a software system. It is not a records retrieval service that you typically see. What this is it's a software company that has automated the follow-up of all of your records retrieval. And it's a platform that basically you send the request in and you send it out. And then on day 3, it sends a follow-up. On day 10, it sends a follow-up. On day whatever you set it at. And then it runs off of the HIPAA individual right of access law. So the request is actually coming from your client. They sign a form allowing you to use their digital signature for records retrieval. And on day 30, they get a final warning saying you're about to be fined if you don't provide these records. You are in violation. 31 day, they get a notice of violation. On the 35th day, my team files a notice of violation. And usually on day 36, you get a call from the, the director of compliance with the hospital or whatnot saying, please retract this. I'll send you the records right now. It has been a game changer for our company. We went from an average of 58 days retrieving records to 22 days. We implemented in July, and 30 days later in August, you immediately started seeing our revenue numbers climb and climb and climb because we were settling cases faster. It took our time on desk from 322 days down to 270 days.
Did everybody hear that? That's huge.
It was a game changer. So the software, of course, was wonderful, but it was, who's going to do this? And is it just another platform? And so I worked with Arcretrival and we built out an integration with FileVines. So now we have a records retrieval tab that the case manager goes in, fills out 5 quick slots saying, this is the provider that I need. These are the dates or date range that I need. And it says send to Arcretrival. The 2 platforms talk to each other. We hired virtual assistants to come in and process those records requests. And so they go into Arcretrival, they process the request, and then their job really is just to monitor the portals, pay the invoices, download the records, and bring them into the portal. What we found is that it is so efficient that we actually had more time on our hands for our virtual assistants. And so we were able to, and we're currently doing this, is we're offloading a lot of the administrative tasks that the case managers were bogged down with to the legal assistants or virtual assistants, so that not only are they handling records retrieval now, they're also handling other things, allowing our case managers to really focus on the client experience, negotiation, and ultimately handle more cases.
And there were some additional things because you had in your records department 3 or 4 employees. So they were, and I hate to use the word replace, but they were replaced by VAs, less VAs. So 2 VAs instead of 3 or 4 employees at a cheaper cost, a higher rate of retrieval, a shorter period of time and time on desk, which led to millions of dollars.
Yeah. And we actually were able to take our medical records supervisor, who, quite frankly, that's a mundane job and she was getting tired of it anyway. And we were able to turn her or move her to a department that we really had a need. And she is thriving in that department. And that's actually resulting in a lot more client reviews because she's in the closings department. So she's getting to sit down and close out cases with clients and get those reviews and testimonials.
Awesome. Brandon, what has technology done for your firm? You know, you started 5 years ago, you mentioned this, but have grown very, very fast. So how have you leveraged technology?
Yeah, in that same vein, we use a record collection company, and that was a pain point we had very early on when the 4 of us were going to the mailbox and faxing or mailing the record request of somewhere in Florida, and then they tell you, oh, we changed the mailbox and we didn't even tell you, and you're like, well, great, you know. So we actually use automated record collection, kind of the same sort of idea, not to go roll it again. But that makes it so much easier for us on that side. I think that was huge for us to be able to get off the ground and not spin our wheels doing kind of those mundane tasks, right? So, anything we can automate has always been a big, a big driver for our decisions. So it's like, hey, is this something we can automate? If so, then let's work on doing that. So drip campaigns are another area that we've done a lot of automation in, depending on what status they are. If they're a current client, we've built out journeys. Now they're getting videos that they got filmed once, right? And these clients are having a better client experience because of, we're utilizing technology to do stuff like that.
What automation platforms are you guys using to create these kind of automations?
Because we're on Litify, which is on Salesforce, we use Marketing Cloud. There's obviously a lot out there, but that worked best for us because they were, it's never, I was talking to a guy who works for Salesforce I saw in the airport on the way here. And I was like, Marketing Cloud and Salesforce. He's like, yeah, we sell it like it works seamlessly, but there's some kinks in there. I'm like, yeah, definitely. So it's never as easy as it should be. And admittedly, I was the one trying to kind of get it all implemented. And we ended up hiring a marketing director who's a hell of a lot smarter than I am. And he took that and ran with it because it was a heavy lift. But yeah, that's who Marketing Cloud's one. There's so many different platforms. That's probably the biggest one that we utilize right now. And then a lot of I was talking with Ross yesterday, our marketing director, with a lot of the apps. I said, are we using these? He's like, oh yeah. I think there was one on there that he was like, oh, this one looks cool. Yeah. Having somebody in your team that loves that. I mean, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm always trying to find new stuff and find somebody else in your team too that loves that, right? And you can kind of build off of that. And obviously, Brandon gave us a great backdrop for what we can implement. So, I would say if you can just pick one or two things, right? I mean, using ChatGPT to respond to Google reviews, right? I think Stacey was using it to respond to an email. I've done that before and had people go, God, that was a really nice email you wrote. I'm like, yeah, you're welcome, right? Yeah. I think there's so many different tools you can use out there.
Well, one of the benefits of like using ChatGPT specifically for emails is that it makes it a much more eloquent email, and it takes the creative part that you have to like rewrite your email multiple times. It just instantaneously does it for you. So I think that's huge.
That's exactly right. I think a lot of times I can be kind of short in my emails, not because I'm trying to be a jerk. I just am to the point. And then you use ChatGPT and you're like, oh, that was much more, they're going to receive it better. It's more well written. It's more eloquent. And you look smarter too. So,
yeah. Well, there's one of the apps is called AI Writer. So if you guys haven't downloaded AI Writer, it has prompts. And one of the prompts in there is, can you make this not sound so mean? And then you put what you want to write and it like changes it so it doesn't sound mean, right? Because that's an important thing in communication. So, you're doing something else, Kayla, in marketing. And this was fascinating when I found out about it. And it's an outdoor marketing using individual vehicles. So tell people about that. Because I think a lot of people are unaware of how technology is changing even the outdoor marketing space.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So we use wrapped rideshare cars like Lyft, Uber. They get paid extra to wrap their vehicle with our logo and that sort of thing. And I think everybody's heard of Carvertise. I did a bunch of research and found a company called Wrapify. I'm not endorsing them by any means, but that's who we use. And their technology was fascinating to me because they can drive by somebody and they get the mobile ID of your cell phone if it's in the car. And then every week...
Say that again. They drive by you.
They drive by the car and it captures the mobile ID of any cell phones in the area, like that are within a certain vicinity. And I get weekly reports that we can now use with those IDs to target them on social media ads, pay-per-click, that sort of stuff for our branding campaign. So it's literally, we are everywhere in their eyes. And their technology allows them to, one of the major pain points of wrapped ride shares is you can't control where they are. And with Wrapify, you're actually able to, they don't get paid unless they're in your target market. So you get a heat map and it shows how many miles were driven in your market, how many miles were out. And so the drivers actually are incentivized to ride around within your target market. We also do swarm events. So every time that there's an event in our area, they will swarm that event with 15 to 20 cars so that we are just circling the event for 5 hours. And that's all they see is Viles and Beckman.
So if you guys want privacy, just know it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because these cars are, if you're standing on the side of the road or in an Uber or in a Lyft going to the airport, it's collecting your data. And then you can use that data to retarget the person with never having ever seen the person, met the person, or anything. It's just completely active. So for those of you who are looking into outdoor marketing, ask the question, is Rapify a solution? Because you can capture so much data with this particular method, which was crazy, scary, all in one. So what are you doing with marketing?
Yeah, I mean, in that same vein, I think OTT is another area you can take all that same data and now you're seeing, Netflix is having a paid subscription model, right? Amazon is having a paid subscription model. So you can, use that same data to target there as well. So with Google Pro Max, I mean, that's kind of in that same vein, right? You're getting that data and you're pumping it back into it. One of the things that we're doing with PPC ads is funneling that data, the Google ID, into Litify, so into the CRM, and then it knows whether or not we sign that case, right? So it's coming in as a lead. Did we turn it down? Do we sign it, right? And then it's pumping that back to Google and saying, hey, this matter was one they signed up. So whatever the Google analytics on that Google ID are, we want more of those and we want less of these other ones. And so it's this machine learning where Google's now going to be serving up better ads to more of our target audience, ideally reducing our cost per acquisition, cost per click. So that's one of the things we're doing. Another one on the privacy side, I think you and I have talked a little bit about this, is WISP. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. I'll have to show anybody who's interested about it. But basically you scan a code, click a link, and it takes you to a text message. And as soon as you kind of opt in and you send a text message, say, hey, you want my contact info? Yeah, hit send. It then pulls your data from that. All of a sudden, I'll see, Luis Scott, he lives at 4582 Green Acres Lane. Here's his email, and you're like, I didn't give you any of that. You're like, no, that's part of like what you can grab from people these days. Mm-hmm. So that's something we're looking at adding to our mix. Potentially at local games, right? Giveaways, put up that barcode where they can scan it. So we're trying to get more of that data so that we can utilize that in whether it be social media ads, just everyday newsletters, anything like that. So I think we're definitely in a world where data is king, right? And Brandon was saying that data is the gold. So the more data we can get, the better. But then you have to utilize it, right? And I think that's what you're doing such a great job at is in turning that into actionable steps. Well, yeah, we're using that data to then go get a more optimal target market in our social media world.
And I think capturing a lot of this data also circumventing the anti-soliciting rules, right? Because in the past, you couldn't solicit, but now you don't have to solicit. You grab their data and then you feed them ads on the internet, and it's not soliciting. So you're completely free of that issue. In terms of data, because you were saying collecting data was so critical, what would you say are the top 3 to 5 data points that every firm should be collecting?
On an individual? Or just in general? Just in general
as a law firm.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're looking at, building that client avatar. So you obviously, as a really basic level, is it a male? Is it a female? When are they born? So you have their age. You've got to know if you can, right? What's their address, right? So that's developing kind of that heat map of, that is our client avatar. They're, usually between 30 and 60, and they skew 55 to 45 male, female, and they live in, these areas, right? So when you're building out, maybe you're looking to open another office, your Google business profile needs to be in that city center over there. I think that if you're looking at kind of building that client avatar, that's certainly something we've talked, at length about, where I love to nerd out on the cost per acquisition side. So looking at that with your marketing, intake, I think the biggest thing there that, you've got to have an intake dashboard. And, the first question that anybody should ask themselves is, do I sign it? What's my want rate? And then what's my conversion rate? And if you don't know those two numbers, you've got a good problem that you can solve, but you can find so much lost revenue in that by going, all right, well, gosh, my want rate's so low. How can I get that higher? Somebody will tell you, I convert every case I want, right? I love that. And you're like, yeah, sure you do, right? And I think I might have said that at one point in time. And then you look at it and it's, I think last year we were at 95.5%, and that was phenomenal, right? But we've worked really, really hard at that. And so, those are some of the things that we're looking at on that side. And, now there's some AI that will go through and look at the transcripts of calls when you're training your people and saying, hey, here's what they did wrong here. Here's how you can coach them to be better. So
that's through CallRail.
Through CallRail, yeah.
I don't know if you guys got the email yesterday that CallRail sent out. They now can transcribe any language and translate it for you. So if you have a call in Spanish, it'll translate the transcription to English for you through CallRail. So if any of you guys who have CallRail, I just saw the email yesterday. So that's pretty
that's really cool. I haven't seen that, but they're constantly putting out stuff there. So if I want to go audit a call, it's nice to look through those transcripts and then to get that kind of AI generated shortened version of that. But I think that's an area where, again, you can constantly use AI in all these different areas. So finding vendors and platforms that utilize AI are so important. I think, Litify does a good job. Fivevine's done a tremendous job of implementing AI. So, make sure you're partnering with people who have that same mindset, right? I heard some people are still on needles, and I remember needles, right? But, you got to get off of that. You're going to get left behind because needles isn't growing. They're not, up to speed with where everybody else is. So that's like going to the F1 race and you're showing up in, your 1972 Pinto, right? Yeah. You're going to get left behind eventually, no matter how good a driver you are.
For sure. What are you collecting and what's been the most useful for you in terms of data?
From a marketing standpoint or just overall?
Just overall.
Our main, we're also building out our client avatar and really figuring out the demographics. We're getting ready to open up a new office in Q4, Q1 next year. And so we're really looking at that data. Cost per acquisition is huge. Retention rate is a big one for us. Is sales, our conversion rate might be high, but how many of those cases are we terminating within 30 days? Because sales is just selling. And so we're looking at that. Our average fee per case is another big one. Our time on desk, I mentioned. So we're really kind of, and then time, from settlement to closing. Are we just leaving the client behind at the date of settlement and just kind of letting the reduction sit? Or are we actually moving that to closing so for the client experience, but also for revenue projections and that sort of thing?
How have you leveraged technology to optimize the operations of the business? Like, is there anything that you've done that has helped you streamline operations? I know we talked about Retrieval, but anything else that you feel like?
So we are getting ready to implement like AI fields and that sort of thing. We talked about even up demands. We're really moving that. So we're actually starting our pilot in actually Monday. And that we're looking at data right now to get a baseline. And then in 3 months, we're going to look and see how much time was saved here. Is this worthwhile to move forward? The client costs, is our clients asking too many questions about the client own costs that we're advancing and that sort of thing. So data, we're always looking at especially when you're implementing new technologies and when you're doing a pilot, is looking at the baseline data. And then at the end of the pilot, was this really successful? Is this something that's worth moving forward? And then also, how productive are employees on it? We've made several mistakes implementing a software that I thought was going to be great. And top level is like, this is going to be awesome. And then you look at it and you get a 15% buy-in because employees are just like, this is just another platform. This isn't useful to me.
Yeah.
And so really looking at that data of, is this a worthwhile investment? Is this going to move forward with me? Or is it just fixing the current problem and not thinking futuristic?
Gotcha. Do you believe that everybody in the business should have the same access to data that you have at the top level leadership? Because I think this is a question that people have when it comes to revenue numbers, to production numbers. Where do you guys fall in that area? Should they have all the information, or should they be shielded, and why?
We're very big on transparency. I do think at the same time, some people don't have that same business acumen that we do, and they will see, oh, you want to, do $10 million in revenue, you must make $10 million. Right. You're like, no, there's a lot of expenses there. And then outside of, your P&L, there's hidden costs too, right? There's things that are not on the P&L. I'm sure many people in here have, high 6, 7 figure, 8 figure client cost advance, right? Mm-hmm. And so those are things that are off the books, and, they don't necessarily see that, nor do you want to sit down and explain that to everybody. Mm-hmm. I think the way that we try to be transparent in with our team is, one, say, hey, here's how many cases we want to close. Here's how many cases we want to sign up. Here's, what our average fee goal is. If they want to work the math backwards, they can see what our goals are. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually what we're going to do. Hopefully we exceed it. But, sometimes you set goals to try to get really close to them. And the other side is setting those career pathways, right? And saying, hey, here's where you can get to in our firm. We want you to succeed. We want you to make as much money as you possibly can, or maybe it's you want to spend more time with your family, right? Mm-hmm. And give them what they want, pay them well, treat them right, and I think that's where maybe you'll have a better buy-in from your team than just saying, here are all the numbers, because I don't think necessarily everybody wants to know that. And so I think that side of it, you always want to be as transparent as possible. I don't think you trying to hide the ball is a good idea at all, because then you get people saying, "Oh, what's going on?" Mm-hmm. They come up with, they will fill in the blanks, right? And usually what they fill it in with is far from the truth. So I think you have to be mindful of both sides of that.
Kayla?
Yeah, transparency is key. This year was the first year that at our Vision Day, we actually laid out the numbers, but you have a fine line of boring people with data and then just connecting the dots so they know these goals didn't just come out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And so we actually put up a pie chart to say, here's where we landed last year. Here's where our expenditures were. And you can see, 40% goes to our team. This is our investment in you. And this is what we're investing here and there. And we did the same thing for our goals. So if we hit our goal this year, this is how much we're investing in you. And that, I got so much positive feedback mm-hmm. on that. They were like, they said it gave them an insight to know, I showed a graph of our net new, and I said, this is where my projected net new was for the year. And this is where I allotted that I was going to need to hire. And this is the actual, and it was within 2% accuracy. And, I said, I projected that we're going to need 17 people by this date. We hired that 17. So we grew, it was 38% last year in team, 38% in revenue this year. And so I showed them, and they're like, I guess it just connected the dots, and they really, really appreciated it. All of the feedback that I got was, now I know why you push me for this. Now I know why you push me for that. So I do think transparency is key, but it's also a fine line of, they're not going to understand. So you almost have to pick the key points and explain, this is why our goal is this, and this is how we're going to get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Give us one parting thought each of what you think the audience needs to take away as it relates to building a firm in 2024. Hit us with your best shot.
So what you should take away, I think anybody here, you got to believe in yourself first and foremost. Obviously we've got a lot of law firm owners here. And so, I think the biggest thing outside of all the technical stuff we've talked about is belief in yourself, having, that mentality, failure is not an option, and that you going out there and marketing and providing great service for clients. I know there was somebody who said that they really didn't have an ad budget. I'd say you're doing your clients a disservice. You're doing the community a disservice by not letting them know how great you are. So, if anything, care about your people, market like crazy, and have fun while you're doing it, right? Because life's too short. So that's kind of where I'd leave it.
Kayla?
Love that. it is so easy to come to these things and leave with all of these tools that you want to implement, like and go back to your team and, oh, I want a CRM. I want this. I want that. I've made the mistake of trying to do too much all at once. And it drives down your team. It causes stress on you, the business, everything. Find out what your major pain points are and just choose one or two things to focus on. Bring back to your team and create a plan. I know a lot of law firm owners tend to be quick starts. Give it to your implementer and create a plan, and don't expect it to be done tomorrow, but understand that the plan is going to be the best part to implement and get the buy-in to actually succeed.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're looking at kind of leaving here and how I approach it, right, is you're usually going to have 100 ideas you wrote down, right? And I think kind of that time boxing, but on a bigger scale here is go have all the ideas, right? And then sort them in, A, B, C. A's, we have to. B's would be great. C's, maybe later down the line. And then get with your team and say, hey, out of these, do you agree? Let's get alignment on these and let's pick, 2 or 3 things. But it's okay to have 50 ideas when you walk out of here, but it's also okay to know that you're not going to implement 50 things, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, the best way to do it is write them all down, organize them, and then say, well, is this something I can implement in a week? The heat map, right? I think that's super easy. Yeah. I mean, I think somebody's turned it on in a day, right? Yeah. So, that might be really impactful and you can do it very quickly. On the other hand, setting up the connection with Marketing Cloud, that took us 12 months, right? That's a much bigger lift. Moving from Needles to Blidify Filevine, that's a really heavy lift. So organize them too, not only in impact, but time, right? And if you have something that's really impactful that you can implement really quickly, well, that should be the top of your list, right? Get that done now and then look at some of the other things. Say, is it really impactful, but it's going to take forever? And then maybe you have something it's going to help, but we can also implement it super quickly. Maybe we put that a little higher up as well. So those are some of the ways I look at implementing things when I leave a conference. And
the secret is you only have to implement one thing to make $1 million. That's the beauty of it. So with that, thank you guys for being on. I appreciate your answering these questions. I'd love to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions for them about any of the apps that they mentioned, any of the strategies that they've mentioned, or any general questions about IT? We have wait till they come.
Oh. I have a question about, I loved what you were talking about the pilot program and testing and seeing, hey, is this really worth investing in before we do a whole rollout? When you're working with various software vendors on those pilot programs, are they allowing you to have a couple of users for a certain period of time to do that test? Or are they forcing you to commit to a long-term contract out of the gate?
They want the sale. So if I tell them this, I don't make a decision without a pilot program. I had a vendor literally change their entire pricing model because I said, this won't work for me. I'm really interested in your program, but this is not going to work for me. And they went back and changed that. So, I think leveraging that and knowing that you're talking with salespeople and whatnot, they have the ability to do it.
Kayla, could you spell the name of the app that you use for medical records? You said it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ARCTRIEVAL, so Arctreval. And I'm happy I have my laptop, so I'm happy to show anybody who wants to after this or on the next break, how it kind of works with Filevine or anything like that.
Thank you. Brandon, I live in your wonderful state of South Carolina. Love it. You mentioned something, it came out so fast I didn't catch all of it. Salesforce, Litify, something like that? Or is it Solidify? What was that?
Yeah, so we use Litify. That's our CRM, and it's built on the Salesforce platform. And so that's our CRM. It's, I think originally it was developed by Morgan & Morgan. I think they recently sold a good portion of it to private equity. So they've gotten a little more difficult to deal with. But great product. I would say it's for, if you really want to grow your firm, it's not for smaller firms. I would say probably, we implemented it with, I think, 7 users, and they were like, what are you doing? And we had to beg and plead with them to let us implement it. But we also had a vision to grow. And so, I think the bigger you are, the better that platform is. We were between Litify and Filevine. I mean, and I think they both have a lot of great things. Litify is a much, much heavier build out than Filevine. Filevine out of the box is a hell of a lot better than Litify. Litify, you can spend a ton of money. I mean, I've heard horror stories. I mean, 6 figures, like hundreds of thousands of dollars building Litify. And so I didn't realize how heavy of a lift it was. We did it early on because we knew with, 6, 7 of us at the time that it would be easier to implement and grow into. But I also think if I had known what a pain in the ass it was going to be, I probably would have stuck with Filevine. I'm glad we didn't, I'm glad we're happy where we are. But it's kind of a fortunate accident in that regard. So.
Anyone else?
Litify ate all our profits this past year. So talk to me about Litify if you're gonna.
It is a multi 6-figure investment.
It is a multi 6-figure investment, and it's not just money; it's staff time, it's ongoing management. But I think ultimately, when you get it working right, it's worth it because of what you can do. I would agree with that, but you have to know what you're doing going in. So.
Super customizable. With that, it's more customizable than Filevine, but Filevine out of the box, 1000%. And Filevine's continuing to grow. I mean, they're doing a lot of great things.
Yeah, I've heard great things. I want to know about Rapify though. I kind of Googled it while we were sitting here, and just kind of pricing, like front end. Since I got you here in front of all of us, and that sounds really fascinating. Front end investment on that, getting into utilizing something, not something like Rapify, but Rapify specifically.
Yeah. Again, going back to sales, you can negotiate. And the best time to hit them is end of quarter or end of year. We hit them at the end of the quarter, and we're actually able to waive all of our production. You pay like a production fee to get the car wrapped. Other than that, you just pay, a weekly or monthly fee, or we paid 6 months in advance, but really the only initial production cost is getting the car wrapped, which is pretty minimal. I think it ranges between $500 to $1,500 depending on per car, depending on if you're doing a full wrap or a partial wrap or that sort of thing. The only ongoing monthly fee is the rate that they that they're charging you for that. It's really, I think we're I'll have to look offline just because I don't want to throw anything out, but it's relatively, depending on how many cars you're going to get, of course, it's relatively reasonable.
We contacted them after she gave me the information, and the pricing is like very fluid. It's like, It depends on the geographic location, how many miles are they going to drive, how many cars you're going to have, what types of wrap you're going to have. So their pricing was like all over the place. Yeah, there was like a lot of consideration. So I don't think that they're, even when I was talking to them, they were like, we can't, it's not like every car is this amount, and therefore if you have 10, it's this amount. It was like, if you have 20, we can do a little discount here. Yeah. And then if the geographic location's smaller, we can, so you have to really talk to them, but their customer service was really great when I called them. So.
Is it a comparative to billboards? Is it a similar investment, or is it like, hey, this is,
it's pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. And you're right. Their customer service is wonderful. The one thing that you run into a lot, especially being a personal injury firm, is sometimes you will get people to call up and say, somebody from your firm just drove past me and they weren't driving right, or that sort of thing. I will say, we worked with a company before Rapify, and we had a lot of those complaints. Since implementing Rapify, we've only had one of them, and they immediately pulled that driver off the road and replaced it with another driver within a week at no charge to us. So they are very responsive to that, and their customer service is phenomenal. Their reporting dashboard, I can pull it up and look, and see exactly where everybody's driving, the number of miles, everything, and grab that retargeting data anytime that I want.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll just add something on the retargeting in that. We have not done this yet, but in conversations with some of the TV stations and Adams reps, the billboard reps, the billboards are also able to capture that data. I think they're doing it through other third-party apps. So I think I heard like your Chick-fil-A app, right? Mm-hmm. I know Luis loves his Chick-fil-A. They're tracking where you are and what billboards you're going by. Yeah. And then they're able to grab that data and say, all right, well, Luis is driving by here. Mm-hmm. Then they can get that additional data and start retargeting you on your phone as well. You can then put up the billboards knowing that, hey, Luis is driving this route. So, I mean, it's like you said, there is no privacy. Like they know everything about you, and you even if you live under a rock, they know what rock and the type of dirt that's there. You know, I mean, so they know everything. And if you want to find more, about somebody, ask the reps at Rapify, at your billboard, at your TV, at your radio. I mean, it's crazy what they have behind the scenes.
You can get privacy. You just need a flip phone. So we can go back to the flip phone. You're good to go. So. Give it up, Kayla, Brandon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Luis.
All right.
You've been listening to the Guts and Glory Show. For more and to learn more about Luis, hit the website at luisscottjr.com. For consulting opportunities, hit 8figurefirm.com. That's the number 8figurefirm.com. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll see you next time on the Guts and Glory Show.